Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Tuesday, September 29th. I'm your host, Rod Bloom. We have a good show for you tonight. We're going to be talking to Zach Hirsch, Mystic Zach, a little bit later in the show. But first, we have Chad P. with us. Chad, how are things going?
Excellent. They're going great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. The Browns are 2-1. It's been a long time.
Yes.
Since
Yes.
they're both 500. So yeah, I just wanted to, kind of, see how you're feeling about this team. Just kind of, what's your overall feeling right now of optimism or whatever with this team right now?
Really good. The first game, everybody like myself was concerned about the slow start, and started to kind of go off the deep end a little bit, and without putting everything into perspective. And I think what we have to remember is that this is not a normal training camp. Wasn't a normal off season. All new coaching staff, all new playbook, new players added to the roster. People didn't get a chance to gel and come together. And I think the Ravens kind of caught him off guard. It, but what really kind of put everything back into focus was how quickly Kevin Stefanski was able to. And I know that it's the Cincinnati Bengals and they're not doing very well right now. But to see that team go from what they did against the Ravens to the Bengals in that short period of time really made me rethink about where this team's at, what Kevin Stefanski's overall plan is, and how he's executing it. And I feel like, and I know we say this every year when they get a new coach, but this time it is honestly different, and you can just kind of see it through the players, the calmness, the fact that Kevin Stefanski stays the exact same every time he's done a media availability. And I feel like this is the right tone that this team needs heading down the road here as they've learned.
Yeah, and I was looking at it kind of the same way, and we're looking at Cincinnati and Washington, not two teams that people see as great teams. But you're still looking at how the Browns played in those games, not just the final score.
Right.
And it surprised me. It has surprised me that the Browns have turned the corner as quickly as they have with no preseason games and limited practice, with everything being so new.
Right. And it wasn't that long ago that this team went 0-16. So even when they
Yeah.
played the bad teams, they couldn't find a win.
Yeah, and they were they were down briefly in that Washington game, and it didn't seem to phase them. That's
No.
something new.
Right. And I think it all stems from their feeding off of Kevin Stefanski's calmness, organization, and drive to improve each play. And that's why I wanted Mike McCarthy. I was okay with Kevin Stefanski. Now I am 100%. I think that was the perfect choice for this football team.
Some people on Twitter have not a lot of people, but a few people have replied to me and said that they, in certain areas, that they're not happy with some of the play calling. And you know what, we hear this all the time.
Right.
What is your thought of the play calling? And we'll just say the last two games. I'm scratching that Ravens game off. I'm not looking at that for any reason now other than thinking of that as the first preseason, as the first and only preseason game.
Right, exactly. Well, this is the way I look at it. Kevin Stefanski doesn't know this football team. He knows them from practice. And so the plan was to have 11 padded practices. They actually didn't even get 11 padded practices because remember, they cut one of them short.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about 10.5 padded practices is all Kevin Stefanski has had time to learn this football team. And he said from the beginning that it was going to take 4 to 5 weeks to figure out who they're at. I honestly believe that he's using the first part of this little stretch right here to learn what he's got because he doesn't know. Joe Woods doesn't know his defense. So each week is another learning lesson for everybody involved. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, talking with my brother Jeff, he said that, he was thinking that the Browns, I'm sure they're not using all of the playbook yet. They're still kind of diving in and kind of just what you're saying. He's learning the team. He's kind of trying plays out and players out in different situations. So I don't think we've seen a lot of what he has up his sleeve yet as far as things he's going to do. I'll say that, but I think we've still seen the main things he wants to do, and that's run the football.
And why would you not? And then
right.
I think this is another thing that we have to look at. Baker Mayfield has had every single thing changed from the very first day that he got to Cleveland to right now. And I mean, it comes clear down to he has yet, and I don't think people realize this, he has yet to play with the same offensive line for 3 weeks because Conklin was out week 2.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 tackles that he had last year aren't even on the football team this year. So it's not just that Stefanski's learning. I mean, Baker Mayfield's learning, Joel Bitonio's learning, Teller's learning, J.C. Tretter's learning, and all these guys are still kind of figuring each other out. And we haven't even had a full team yet because of either injuries or something else. So the fact that we're coming out and we're 2-1 already, I think is ahead of where Stefanski probably thought the team might be. So.
Yeah, I would think so. Take me through how you felt about Baker through the first 3 games, because I think a lot of people wanted to see progress, and there's been talk about, how well Baker has to do to be the guy, and we don't need to get into that because I think you and I are probably in the same spot that we think he needs to be given time here under Stefanski, and we think he's going to be fine, if that happens. But we see him against the Ravens, and he looked awful. He really did. He looked like he wasn't going beyond his first read. And then against the Bengals, he looked good. He looked comfortable. He threw the pick, but that was a poor choice or a poor play or something. Okay, just made the one mistake. And then against Washington, he was he 2 touchdown passes, no picks.
Yeah.
And he looked pretty good, So kind of take me through, the first 3 games and what you think Baker's learning and how you think he's doing so far.
Well, I say the first game, there's no doubt that Baker knows the Ravens. He knows their defense. Their defense is absolutely phenomenal. Nobody can take that away. He goes into that game. They have a game plan that they think is going to work. Once again, Kevin Stefanski's never played with this team against the Ravens, so he doesn't know what's going to happen. He's got Jedrick Wills on one side, who is brand new, who's converted from a right tackle to a left tackle. And before the draft even happened, I posted a breakdown of every offensive tackle taken in the draft in the last 5 years. And there's a lot of them. And only one performed at a high level from the day he was drafted, and that's Ronnie Stanley. Everybody else either didn't play, started late in the season, or ended up becoming a guard. So he's got that. He's got Conklin. He's never played with Conklin before. He doesn't know. I mean, he knows who Conklin is. He knows that he's a great player. But in the back of his mind, I don't think people realize how bad Baker Mayfield got lit up last year by the Steelers, the Ravens, the Bengals, the 49ers. And you know that that's in the back of his head while he's trying to play this game. So then when it doesn't work right away and they're still kind of trying to figure out, I think it just steamrolled on him on the Ravens game.
Yeah.
And when there was something that happened in the Bengals game, and they talked about it on on the television show, was that Odell came up to try to talk to Baker on the Bengals' first drive, and Baker shrugged him off because he was laser focused on what was going on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that translated. So then we make it to the Washington game. Once again, you're going against 5 first-round guys. He had Sam Hubbard at tackle the week before. Now he's got Conklin back in the game. He's learning that he can trust Jedrick Wills. And I think it's still, in the back of his mind, he's remembering, all the games before. It takes a minute to get past, okay, hey, I can trust these guys. And I think you watched him develop that throughout the game. And he's still got to get timing down. He doesn't have that down with all these guys yet. Once again, it's a brand new offense. But what I also did a breakdown of how Kevin Stefanski used Kirk Cousins in 2019 and how he's using Baker Mayfield. Mm-hmm. And, Kirk Cousins, here he is, at the time was an 8-year veteran, $80 million investment by the Minnesota Vikings. And through 3 games, Baker Mayfield is outperforming him. Yards, touchdowns, completions, overall passer rating. And so you're taking a guy who's been in 4 different offenses versus a veteran who at one time was considered to be the most sought-after free agent quarterback. And Baker's right there with him.
Yeah, tell me this. Is Baker, or are the Browns going downfield more than what the Vikings did in this offense? I know the Vikings were going downfield to Diggs and Thielen a bit, but there's a lot of guys averaging 15, 20 yards a reception on the Browns over the past couple of weeks. I'm just kind of wondering how that compares to what the Vikings have been doing.
The hard part about that is that I have the totals for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I will have to actually break it down. But when you look at the overall totals for the year, and I'll just kind of give you an idea here where we're at. From 0 to 10 yards, Kirk Cousins was throwing to his left 49 of 62 was his completion rate, 92 of 112 in the middle of the field, 39 of 47 on the right side of the field. Mm-hmm. That's where his money was being made with Kevin Stefanski. So now once you start getting into over 20 yards, and this is for the entire season. This isn't just the first 3 games, right?
Uh-huh.
29 to the right, 21 to the middle, 19 to the left. So that's a huge comparison. There wasn't a lot of shots deep.
Yeah, and I expect the Browns to go deep on occasion. I expected this offense to not go as deep and gunsling like they tried to do under Freddie because of the running game and because of the tight ends they had. I figured that there would be more short passes, but I guess when you have OBJ and Jarvis and some of the other guys, you need to utilize them the way they can be utilized too.
Right. And I think that's important. I mean, because I'm sorry that I don't have my chart up, but I actually did post a chart that broke down how Kevin Stefanski distributed the ball in 2019. And that's what I was trying to explain before we got to where we're at right now, that it's going to be just a couple guys that are going to get the ball. And when you make an investment in Hooper, and you've already got Hunt, who is catching normally 85%, you don't need a third wide receiver.
No, you don't. You don't. Yeah,
All right.
we've talked about that a bit here on the podcast. That that Hunt and Hooper should both really have, quite a few more receptions than the third wide receiver, whoever that might be.
So just I do have it right here just to give you an idea. Out of all the passes that were made, Stephon Diggs had 99 of them. Cook, Dalvin Cook ended up with 73, Thielen 62, Rudolph 55, Smith, the other tight end, at 49. So right there is the majority of your targets are two tight ends, two receivers, and a running back.
Yeah, and they don't have a second running back like the Browns do.
No, and no, and they don't have Nick Chubb, who's averaging 5.7 yards per carry.
Right.
So, so if you imagine that this team, or if Baker Mayfield was a rookie just coming into the NFL, this was his first year with Kevin Stefanski. This is exactly how you would bring him along until he has a better understanding of the offense.
Yeah, that's right. And you're talking about Chubb and Hunt. These guys have been incredible. And against Washington, it took a little while to get Chubb going, but they stuck with it. There were a lot of 2-yard runs there, at the beginning of the game. There were some 2-yard runs that turned into 5-yard runs too. But once they got going and kind of wore down Washington's defensive line, then, the game was pretty much over at that point. So
right,
go ahead.
But that is exactly how the Redskins had played the games prior to that game. That it? You know what I mean? Is that they're so strong up front that it takes a minute to wear them down to where you can start opening it up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to watch the Browns, in games going forward, because it's going to be, to find out what it's going to take, what kind of a deficit it's going to take to get the Browns to go away from that running game, because you just can't give up on these guys as good as they are. If you're down a couple touchdowns, you can't just go out there and just start throwing the ball every time when you have guys this good at running back.
Exactly, because at any time you hand the ball off to Nick Chubb, he can break one for a touchdown from anywhere on the football field.
Yeah, and he's kind of been held in check on, correct me if I'm wrong, but on a real long touchdown run so far this season. So he's due.
Right. Yes, exactly.
It's coming. It's coming. So, could be this week.
Where I think the Browns are at right now is exactly where they should be. Where Baker Mayfield's at right now is exactly where he should be. And while we might want Baker to throw the ball all over the field, or some people do, I don't. I actually want him to do exactly what he's doing. He's not going to go against what Kevin Stefanski's telling him to do. And if Alex Van Pelt and Stefanski are saying, look, here's where we want you to go on your first read, here's where your second read is at, and if your second read is there, and that happens to be, say, Landry at 9 yards out, and it doesn't matter whether OBJ or Hodge or whoever is open 30 yards down the field, they're telling him, you need to go right here.
Yeah. And
he's not going to be overriding his coaching staff 3 weeks into this season.
Yeah. Well, it's the best way to get this offense playing well is to have him do that and not be freelancing all the time and not taking off out of a good pocket, which we've seen in the past.
Right.
The past two games he's looked good. He's been standing in there. Pretty much an appropriate amount of time, just about every play. So it's been it's been good to see.
And I will agree. During the first half against Washington, he was he Mayfield and Wills both were a little excited, and
Wills
I
was
think,
jumpy. Yeah.
yeah, he was. But do you blame him? I mean, it's still all new for him as well.
Yeah, I
And
mean, we like you said, we got to remember he's a rookie, and man, a rookie left tackle. You can't expect this kid to be perfect now.
no, but and if I go back to my chart that I made, where you talk about tackles taken in the first round for the last 5 years, he's performing better than almost all of them outside of Stanley.
Yeah,
And
it's not easy.
so, yeah, no, it's not easy at all. And when you even look at like Andre Dillard, who was taken by the Eagles,
Hmm.
when it comes to a tackle prospect entering the draft, there was Andre Dillard was off the charts as far as like a prospect was concerned. And he didn't even get a play really until this year.
Yeah.
And Wills is starting at a different position and actually performing really well. So I couldn't be more impressed with the young man.
Well, I think you can't take anything away from any of the guys who are out there playing, but there's got to be a lot of good things happening with Bill Callahan
Oh,
with these
yes.
guys.
Yeah, what a godsend he has been. Because not only that, you look at what he's done with Teller, and JC's gotten better. Joe Batonio's gotten better. Wills is playing way above where he should be playing, being this new and not having a full training camp or an normal off season. You can't be more impressed with the job that he's done.
Yeah, and Chris Hubbard played against the Bengals, right?
Yes, he did,
And
and was absolutely
yeah,
outstanding.
yeah, he played great. So, yeah, you got to give Bill Callahan credit and all of these guys for listening and doing their job and learning, whatever he's teaching them, which is how to play offensive line correctly. So, I wanted to just get your thoughts on the defense real quick here. Then the defense, which it gave up a lot of points. It's given up a lot of points. The game was never really in doubt, I don't think, against the Bengals, but the defense did what it had to do to keep the lead all the time. And then against Washington, it's like all of a sudden they're this ball hawking turnover defense. Maybe Dwayne Haskins is at fault, but if we can get some turnovers forced by this defense, that's really going to help the offense.
Agree. And this is my opinion, in my opinion only. But watching the game, it seems like the defense feeds off of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't surprise me is like if you go back last year and the defense plays really, really well and the offense just sputters, you kind of get worn down. It's like I'm going to go out here and give it all, give it all, give it all, and then the offense isn't going to do anything. So when the offense goes out and they get an interception and the offense goes down the field and scores a touchdown, it's energized the defense to step up.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then you have plays, like the play that OBJ made on that ball that could have easily been a pick.
Yeah,
I'm going out there fighting, batting that ball down. It's just plays like that by the offense. Not only the scoring plays for the offense, but plays like that to help the defense out. Yeah, you make a great point that the offense and defense can feed on each other. So, God, let's hope that continues.
Yeah, and I think once again, I think we kind of lose perspective of what the past was, and we have to remember these players went through that. These players went through a head coach using a special teams coach to spy on the offensive coordinator, a defensive coach that was literally having shouting matches with the head coach, to then go to Fred, who has his offensive coordinator on the field before games making fun of the head coach. So these players have dealt with that for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have to, they're human beings just like you and I.
Right.
And I posted this too as well. Kevin Stefanski has to not only learn this football team, he has to earn the trust of all those players as well, that this isn't going to be another circus. And that if
Right.
they're going to invest their bodies for him, they want to know that there is going to be a return that's going to last more than 6 months.
Yeah, and I think these players are ready for a professional environment. I just think they are. Definitely.
Yeah,
And I think that's what they're getting.
Yes, I agree completely. I'm so impressed with Kevin Stefanski's interviews that he's doing, or media availabilities, where he's very straightforward. Like Nathan Zegura asked him after the big win against Cincinnati, he's like, "So, Coach, what did you do after the big win?" Kevin Stefanski said, "I went to bed. It was late." Beautiful answer.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So give me a prediction for the Dallas game.
This is something where, and I've seen this all over Twitter, and everybody's like, if the Browns win this game, blah 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 blah. This game is a learning game. This is a football team that, in the midst of the COVA and everything that we're dealing with, is going to travel all the way to Dallas, Texas. This is brand new for them as a team. You've got everything, and they're going against a good football team.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care whether they win or lose the Cowboys game, because it's not a must-win football game. This is a learning game. I hope that they improve from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. I just want to see the team improve, because week 5 is a must-win football game if they want to make the playoffs. That's against the Colts. So I hope that, and I want them to beat the Cowboys. I mean, I always want the Browns to win. But if they don't pull off a win and they learn, and the football team is better in the fourth quarter than they were in the first quarter, I think that's where we have to kind of like temper our expectations and kind of put it into a reality check, that that's what you want to see. Like it or not, the Cowboys have been a stable organization for a long time. They're coming off a painful loss. There's media controversy today about Jerry Jones said this, and no, he didn't really mean it. And, so you're going to have a very motivated and frustrated football team playing at home. The Browns are going to travel. They're locked in a hotel room. This isn't normal. So if they can, like I said, if they look better in the fourth quarter than the first, and they keep it close, then we can focus on the really important game, which is the Indianapolis Colts the next week at home. Then that's 5 weeks into the season. The excuses will be gone. Everybody should know what they're doing. And it's time for this team to start making a run if we're going to be serious.
That's a great perspective, Chad. Yeah, I really like that. So this has been a lot of fun. Everybody, you can follow Chad at ChadP71, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Then thanks, Chad, and we're going to have you back on soon.
Yes, anytime. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy doing this with you. It's a good time.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
You too, sir.
Yeah, we're going to bring in Mystic Zach Hirsch. How are things going, Zach?
Things are going great. We got the NFL back.
Yeah, some news today out, about COVID and the Vikings? No, the Titans. Titans played the Vikings last. So, before we really get into anything else, what are your thoughts about that? You think they're going to get this thing under control quickly?
I hope so. I saw a couple people saying they might forfeit the game. I don't think that's going to happen. But they can't get into the building until Saturday, so they might have to switch the bye weeks around. I'm assuming the NFL has the protocol in place to, mitigate it and make sure that they know what to do if the team has a couple positive cases. I also heard that they were aware of one of the positive cases before they played their game, so that's pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, this is a Browns podcast, so our whole angle here is that the Titans are playing the Steelers, and we really want the Titans to be at full strength and not have any disadvantage going into this game because we see this as a potential loss for the Steelers, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But
Yeah, and if the Titans have to forfeit the game, that's a big blow to any Steeler division rival.
yeah,
It's a free
definitely.
win.
Yeah, I would hope that they would, push the game back or something. Hopefully pushing it back to Monday is a worst case. Uh, but we'll see. So Zach, you have a rather large and impressive Instagram account. It's I Pick Wins. You have 375,000 followers. That's a lot.
Yeah, so I've been doing the Instagram for a little over a year. I started about week 1 last year of the NFL season, and I was able to have a lot of success in sports handicapping and picking a lot of different sports. And then I was able to kind of combine it with the social influence side of things with a lot of different people like Logan Paul and Jake Paul, who are both from Cleveland. And yeah, it was a very good year on the Instagram side of things.
Very nice. Now you're 18. You're in your freshman year of college, or you're going to be starting, or you just started. Is that right? You just
Yeah, I
started your
just started
freshman
a
year.
few weeks ago.
So you go to Lynn College. Is that in Florida?
Yeah, it's in Boca Raton, Florida.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a pretty nice area to be going to college in. But you're from Florida, anyways, right?
Yeah, I'm from right around the area.
So so what's the environment? Do you have in-person class?
So basically they do a class in person every other day. And you're kind of on a block schedule. But my house is close, and I'm like, a lot of the teachers aren't even there, so I just decided for at least this semester just to stay home and do my classes online.
It's probably a smart decision. That's good.
Yeah,
So
it's a lot easier.
so have you committed to what you're studying in college yet?
Yeah, so I'm studying sports management. I already finished that course actually. It's a very accelerated this year where you do it instead of a 16-week period, you do it over a 4-week period. So you do 4 times as long classes, which equals up to 2.5 hours a day, and it's very accelerated.
So you did that in the summer leading up to
No,
this
we
year?
started very early. We started in August, and I was able to
Oh,
finish it. Now I'm on a new set of classes. Yeah.
oh wow. Okay. Okay, I gotcha. All right. So sports management, nice. So you've been handicapping you've been picking games for a long time. So I heard the story, and I think from listening to you being on some other, it wasn't a podcast. I think you were on another interview where you said you were picking games against your family and this going back to when you were 5 and 6 years old, and you were doing pretty good all the way back then.
Yeah, so when I was younger, we would do a football pool with the 4 of us, and my mom and brother aren't huge football fans, but my dad's a pretty big NFL fan, and me and my dad would pretty much split, half and half. Maybe I was in second grade or so, and yeah, I was always known as the sports kid who could name all the players in the team, all the players, and a lot of different statistics. I could recite power rankings, just a lot of different stuff.
So you have a photographic memory, is that right?
Yeah, I like to call it a photographic sports memory, but
It,
it's basically a photographic memory that really really works when I'm passionate about something, and that's obviously been sports. It's been my number one hobby since I was a kid, and It's allowed me to really excel as a sports handicapper and analyst to where I can remember things that a lot of people wouldn't remember about different things and tells and plays, and it's just a really unique advantage.
So kind of help me understand this a little bit. When you're picking or when you're thinking about a game, so let's just say, the Broncos played the Jets this week. So when you hear that these two teams are playing, you can kind of think about in your head tendencies. You already know tendencies that are there, maybe from seeing or watching highlights or from looking at stats. So you've got some of this homework already done in your head. Is that kind of how it works for you?
Yeah, and I think I have a pretty good baseline of what every team is going into the season, and it obviously doesn't apply to the teams with new coaches, and I keep my eye out and keep up with statistics, and I keep up a lot of it. I keep up with is how they're calling their plays, how they're running their team, how their front office is. I think that's a really unique way of looking at it as well. And then really the main thing I look at is quarterback play. And that's probably the biggest thing when I'm picking games. And if you notice, like if you look through all my picks, it's a trend that whatever team I pick likely has the better quarterback than the other team. And I just think it's such a huge advantage. And it's so hard for me to pick against a team that has the advantage of the quarterback position.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because with the rules in the league right now, it definitely gives the offense the advantage. So a good quarterback can take advantage of that. So makes a lot of sense. And right now, home field doesn't really mean a whole heck of a lot. So you can kind of throw that out the window almost too. So looking at the quarterbacks is a good place to start, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually made it a lot easier because the lines in particular haven't really adjusted. They're still acting as if there is a home field advantage, which there's really not much of one. I mean, there's no fans, so it just allows a guy like we've seen Aaron Rodgers really elevate his game this year. He's able to do his snap counts a lot better, especially with no fans. He just seems to be a lot more confident in his throws and things like that. And I think a lot of it is because there is no he's a kind of a permanent home field advantage to where he's always smarter than the defense because he's such a smart player.
Yeah, that's a great point, and people really haven't been talking about that much with the quarterback play, and seeing guys, and I assume the same thing's probably true for Russell Wilson. Of course, Seattle's notorious for being one of the loudest places with their fans, so it's probably allowed the other teams to stay in the game with Seattle because they've had very high scoring games.
Yeah, that's true. But also, Russell Wilson can do the silent snap count now. So, I mean, obviously the fans usually don't make too much noise when they're on offense, but I think the Seahawks are a really smart team, and obviously they're very well coached. So I think they're able to adapt to pretty much any circumstance. As to where if a team had a similar home field advantage and wasn't as well coached as them, I think it'd probably show more.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about the opposition's quarterback. Not having to face that noise is kind of what's kept some other teams in the game against the Seahawks. But Russell Wilson's been playing very well, no matter how you look at it. So, but this is a Browns podcast, so let's talk about the Browns a little bit, Zach. I just kind of wanted to get your impressions overall with the Browns organization, with this regime. We're 3 games in, and all we really want in Cleveland, or all I really want, maybe it's not what everybody else wants. We have very loyal fans here, but a lot of the loyal fans are impatient, tired of losing, and all they want to do is win. Me, I want to coach to be here for the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years and see what happens versus having a revolving door. And I want the same thing at GM. So what are your thoughts of what you've seen out of the Browns and maybe in the offseason in these first 3 games.
Yeah, so for the first time in a long time, I think I really like the Browns head coach hire. I think Kevin Stefanski is a solid hire. You've seen in the past, he's a good play caller, especially for the Vikings, and I think he's able to do a lot of unique things on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, gets thrown under Gary Kubiak, who's a mastermind of the run game, but now fits in perfectly with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. They run a lot of 12 personnel, and they've got Harrison Bryant, David Njoku, and Austin Hooper now. So I think schematically it was a really good fit. And then I think their new GM, Andrew Berry, is very smart, and he really takes an analytical approach. And I think that's something the Browns have probably needed. And I think Paul DePodesta is also a very, very smart. And you can tell that they're very adept at adding talent. Just a matter of 1, getting Baker Mayfield on track, and 2, putting it all together.
So if you were to put something out saying whether or not Stefanski would be here 3 years from now, what would you say?
I'd say yes. I'd go with the over, but but as far as the quarterback Baker Mayfield goes, I don't think he lasts the 3 years.
Okay, I was going to ask you about Baker next. So, what do you see with Baker, and why do you think he will not last 3 more years? Do you think they don't keep him after, or do you think they don't extend him for that 5th year, or do you think he just doesn't do well enough, or what?
I just don't think he's very good, and I used to think he was, but I think just recently he's just a one-read quarterback, and he's also been extremely inaccurate recently. He's kind of a turnover machine, and I don't think his situation could be any easier with Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that would do a lot more in his circumstance. And he's just very, very antsy in the pocket, and he seems to kind of have lost his confidence, which I think a lot of people attribute to the Cleveland Browns' lack of offensive line play last year, which could be. Just to me, he seems kind of like a broken quarterback. I think the Browns would really benefit from going run heavy this year and looking at another potential franchise quarterback in the coming seasons, because I just don't think he's the guy.
Well, you know what? I would have agreed with you after the Ravens game, or agreed that it looked like he was heading that direction. But I think we've seen a little bit of a change in him the last 2 weeks. So I think a lot of us are thinking that maybe he's meshing a little bit better with the guys and learning a little bit from Stefanski in this system. So we'll see what happens. Regardless, Baker's the best quarterback we've had in Cleveland in a long time, even if he's not a top 10 or 15 quarterback. So we're happy about that. But, you talked about looking at quarterbacks. What do you think about the Browns running backs?
I think they're undoubtedly the best running back duo in the league. I mean, you don't get better than Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I mean, Nick Chubb is arguably the best pure runner in the NFL. He's just so violent. Mm-hmm. He's so good at the long plays. And Kareem Hunt's a fantastic pass catcher, also a very good runner. They obviously got him extended too. So I think those two guys as a tandem are fantastic. And
you get to where you can only throw out so many superlatives for those guys. They're fun to watch, let's put it that way. And especially when the Browns are in games or leading, it's even more fun because they're going to be getting the ball. So let's, before we talk about some games, I wanted to get to just some of the notes I saw about you. Talked about some of the charity work you did and so forth. Is that still an ongoing thing, Zach?
Yeah, so for a few years now, I've been involved in the Be Like Grid charity, which helps. It's an organization. They're an orphanage in Haiti, and they help build houses for homeless families in the Grand Guave area, as well as provide a home for 64 different children. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Haiti a few years ago and help build a house and do a lot of other great things. And since then, I've been working hard to raise money to donate to build more houses and hopefully build as much as possible.
That's excellent. So let's talk about a few football games. And I'm sure everybody would love your picks on all of these. We're not going to give everybody all those, but we're going to do a little bit of analysis. So I assume you probably have the slate in front of you or know the slate. So I tell you what, I'll just kind of let you go through any games that you want to talk about. You know what? Let's start with the Browns Cowboys because that's probably what people want to hear first here, and then we'll touch on some other ones.
Yeah. So as far as Browns Cowboys go, it's funny. I just finished up filming my picks of the week, which I do every week, and one of my picks was the Cowboys over the Browns, and I just think that because I just don't trust this Browns secondary. I think Denzel Ward's a very good number one corner. He's tremendously underrated, actually. But I just don't think the Browns safeties and then their linebackers, I just don't think they can keep up with the Cowboys passing attack. And I just don't see Baker Mayfield taking advantage of a weakened Dallas secondary.
Yeah, so tell me this. When you pick, do you consider the spread or do you just pick straight up?
I can't lie to you. It seeps into my head, but I do pick money line, and I don't pick with the spread. But if you look at my page, right, if I do a pick where a team is favored by a lot, like for example, this week the Rams are playing the Giants. I think the Rams were like 13.5-point favorites. If I was to pick that game and Baltimore over Washington, everyone would go crazy. They would say, anyone can pick this, whatever. So it kind of puts a chip on my shoulder to really try to target the games where a team is a 4 to a 5-point favorite, and you can put it together and put in a good parlay. Like for the Browns Cowboys game, for example, the Cowboys are 1-2. They're coming off a loss, and it's only a 4-point spread. So I think a lot of people think that game's up in the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, that Cowboys passing attack, if it's not scaring Browns fans, then they're not being realistic, because the Cowboys have 3 excellent wide receivers, a very nice tight end, and Zach can throw Dak, I should say, and too many Zachs. Dak can throw the ball to all those guys. So yeah, it's definitely a concern. The Browns offense is going to have to be ready to score a ton of points if they want to be in that game. So
yeah, and I think Baker's going to really have to hit those open targets because they will be there, and obviously Odell Beckham Jr. is very good at getting open. I think it's just a matter of him hitting those open throws, which he hasn't been doing too well.
Yeah, I mean, Odell's been playing very well so far too, so hopefully that'll continue. So are there any other games in particular you want to talk about, or you just want me to throw out a few to you?
You can throw them out.
This week, I tell you what, there are a few real duds of games.
Yeah, it's a rough slate compared to last week, especially.
Yeah, I mean, probably. The Colts 2-1 against the Bears, but that's at the Bears 3-0. I mean, do you expect the Colts to compete in that game?
Yeah, and I think Nick Foles coming back really adds a layer to that offense. I'm not sure how they deem that Mitchell Trubisky was the better quarterback. The only conclusion I can really come to is that Foles isn't a great practice guy, and he's just more of an in-game guy. And I think when you saw Foles into that offense, I think you saw a new dimension in that he can really open it up with the deep ball. And we saw him throw those bombs to Anthony Miller, Allen Robinson, and I think he can really stretch teams out, which allows less guys in the box to help Dave Montgomery. I think it just helps everything all around, and you can hit those deep bombs, threaten them with a deep bomb, and I think that's a very valuable facet in the NFL. And then on the other side of the Colts, you have a different strategy where Phillip Rivers is still a very solid quarterback, but his arms isn't the same. It's not what it used to be. He's not really throwing those deep balls, so they're kind of going for more of a short, intermediate type game with T.Y. Hilton and now Mo Alley Cox, who's kind of emerged as their tight end. And they've really, really been running Jonathan Taylor as their bell cow. and he's been pretty good. Obviously a coveted prospect coming out of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
They also have a tremendous offensive line. I think, in my opinion, the Colts have the league's best offensive line. When you couple that with Jonathan Taylor and a quarterback that seldom makes mistakes, I think they could potentially have a solid team, especially with Coach Frank Reich. So I think it's just a matter of which team's able to put it together and coach a better game.
Yeah. So the Patriots play at the Chiefs. So in one of my fantasy leagues, I have the Patriots defense. Do you think I should be picking up a different defense this week?
Yeah. I don't think I wouldn't advise anyone to
start a defense against the Chiefs.
Yeah, that sounds like a kamikaze mission. But,
yeah. So
this Chiefs offense really is fantastic.
I know. I don't know who is going to compete against this team. I mean, they're the Patriots. You never count them out. But man, after watching what the Chiefs did to the Ravens, it's hard to imagine that a lot of teams are going to give this Chiefs team a game this year.
Yeah, and the Chiefs, what really turned around the last few years is that defense. They switched to Steve Spagnuolo as the defensive coordinator, and he has really implemented, in my opinion, a much better defense to where they don't allow the big plays. They don't allow teams in the games. They force teams to gain their yards methodically while they're airing it out deep, and it's just absolutely demoralizing for other teams. And the only way you can really beat them is to hope Patrick Mahomes isn't making all the throws he can.
Yeah, just kind of pray, I guess. Yeah.
Maybe pray at a bad
where we are. So let's see. Bills at the Raiders. Bills 3-0, Raiders 2-1. Are you buying the Raiders at 2-1?
Not really. And I'll tell you why. I think their defense is just so suspect, especially along the defensive line. They have the Cowboys' old defensive line coach, Rod Marinelli, and he's obviously been around for a very long time. He helped coin the Tampa 2, but he's just not very built for the modern NFL, in my opinion. I mean, you saw the Patriots just absolutely gashing them. It was bad. Like, there was gigantic run lanes. You saw in past years the Cowboys, when they played the Rams in the playoffs, C.J. Anderson, Todd Gurley absolutely gashed them. I just think as the Raiders get into the playoffs, I just think they're going to get gashed by the run or the pass just because of their defense.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. The Saints at the Lions. Saints are 1-2. Is this let's see. I would think this would be kind of a coming out party for the Saints against the Lions, but who knows? What are your thoughts there?
I think Saints fans should have a moderate level of concern. Because to me, it looks like Drew Brees' arm is just not where it was, and we're very early into the season. I can only imagine where it's going to be by the playoff time.
It does not look good.
Start to falter usually by the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now it's early. I mean, last year they lost to the Vikings in a game they really shouldn't have lost, and the year before. It's just looking kind of ugly. I mean, if his arm continues to struggle, they have a very capped ceiling if that's the case.
Yeah, I love Drew Brees, but man, it looks like they need to have somebody come in and throw for him. It really does. He just cannot throw that football very well. So, but the Lions defense, it's a good, he may be able to find some openings there. So, well, we know he can find the openings. It's just a matter of if he can get the ball there or not. So.
Yeah, exactly. I think his accuracy and decision-making is still there. He's still very accurate from 5 to 15 yards, but man, when he has to push some of those balls, it gets kind of ugly.
Yeah. How about the Chargers at the Bucks? The Chargers have looked pretty decent sometimes, and I think, and of course the Bucks have been a darling, because of Brady. So, which of these teams do you like better in the long run? Not necessarily in this game.
It's an interesting question. And I think I like the Buccaneers more in the long run. And I think they have a very underrated secondary, especially. They're a pretty solid unit. They're also pretty stout against the run. And then I think once they get Brady going with a healthy Chris Godwin and a healthy Mike Evans and maybe Gronk get some momentum, I think they're really going to be a tough team to stop as well. Because I think Tom Brady is different than a Drew Brees or Philip Rivers, right? He still has his arm strength. If you watch him, he's still able to push the deep ball. He looks very good. He's very accurate. And I think that it could be dangerous for any team if they get into the playoffs.
Yeah, no, we have a lot of winless teams here. Which of these teams is going to get a win this week? I don't think it's going to be the Falcons at the Packers. I would guess it won't be the Giants at the Rams. So we're down to the Bengals hosting the Jags, and then we've got the Broncos at the Jets and the Vikings at the Texans. Who do you feel most strongly
about? The Eagles
about?
too.
Oh, the Eagles, yeah. Well, I think I kind of skipped them on purpose. At the Niners, I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm going to say that is probably not going to be a win.
Yeah, and it's funny because Philly on paper should be able to stack up with these teams, but
they're snake bit. Yeah. So, who do you feel most strongly about picking up their first win?
I think the Bengals. Especially I think Joe Burrow really showed some nice flashes last week in their tie against the Eagles. I think in the second half he was really hitting his groove. He seems to have a good rapport with T. Higgins. They've also got A.J. Green, who they kind of force the ball to a little bit too much. I don't know if you're able to catch their game, but A.J. Green just really lacks the explosiveness he used to as a younger guy. He's 32 now. He's had a litany of injuries, and he's still a good, solid, big body possession guy, but he's not a deep threat anymore, and he's not getting separation on a post route. So, you trying to force the ball there just isn't going to work, and I think they should probably look to cut ties and go with more Tyler Boyds instead of A.J. Greens.
Yeah, A.J. Green just hasn't played a lot, and it's been, 2-3 seasons since he's really played quite a bit, I think, with the injuries. So yeah, definitely. But yeah, I would agree with you. It's probably the best chance they have. I don't know how their schedule stacks up. I know they've got a game against the Browns again in another 3-4 weeks, but against hosting the Jags, I'm sure they're feeling like they have a shot for a win there.
I think the main thing with them is just getting that offensive line on point. I think they found their franchise left tackle in Jonah Williams, which is those other four guys, and they just need to allow Joe Burrow to get some time in the pocket, and they need a block for Mixon so he can kind of relieve some of the pressure. So I think in the offseason, especially if they get a top pick, I think they should definitely go with an offensive lineman just to really shore up that front five.
Yeah, I can tell you just from I didn't catch their game this past week, but from when the Browns played them, their offensive line is definitely where they need the help. They need to, when you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow, you need to protect a guy. I mean, you don't want him getting killed out there his rookie season to where it's something that's going to affect him throughout his career. So
exactly.
So hopefully, not that I'm rooting for a division rival, but I really don't want to see the guy get his career messed up, So hopefully they take care of that enough to where he doesn't get the crap beat out of him like that. So, let's go back to the Steelers-Titans game and assume that maybe this game gets moved to Monday. Maybe the Titans get a few practices in. How do you see that game? How do you see that game going? Or what's your thoughts on that game?
Man, I think it's going to be tough for the Titans to get a lot going. And I say that because that Steelers run defense is relentless. I mean, if you watch that Steelers Giants game, Saquon Barkley, when he was 5 yards in the backfield, they were on him. I mean, Casey Hayward, T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree, they're just really, really relentless.
They're tough.
I think they're a very well-coached squad of guys. So I think if the Titans can't get Derrick Henry's legs going and Tannehill's forced to pass against a very good pass rush, I think they could be in trouble, especially without their number one receiver in A.J. Brown.
Yeah, and then if they have to play without practices or with one or two practices, makes it that much tougher. So,
yeah, it really does, and the Steelers have a solid squad, especially with a healthy Big Ben.
They do, and it's unfortunate from a Brown standpoint, but and to be realistic, I wasn't looking for the Browns to make a deep run this season, anyways. I was kind of looking at this season to be a season where the team grows under Stefanski and hopefully puts together a decent record. I figure if they got to 8-8 or 9-7. With the talent I think they have, let's face it, a winning record for the Browns would be huge. So anything close to that this season would be great, but still can't root for the Steelers. Just can't do it. So Zach, let me give you a chance to throw out any other information you'd like to about how everybody can follow you or get in contact with you.
Yeah, you can get in touch with me at iPickWins on Instagram or at www.iPickWins.com.
All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. So I hope everybody's going to check out your stuff. It's definitely good stuff. You got a great record, doing a lot of good things.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
All right. This has been the Browns Blitz, and we will catch you next time.